to introduce my guest, I want to say a couple things. Obviously, right now, we have a time that's unprecedented, and we're all looking inward to find a better way. And I think tonight, my guest is someone that is just absolutely one of the best people we could be talking to right now. And he is so let me kind of set the stage for this a little bit. It's 2006 when I first, I was listening to a podcast and I saw this guy. He showed up on this podcast and he's talking, and it was just like this Bodie's off a voice started talking all this really cool stuff, and it really gave me some really good perspective on things with my own life. So he is the author of 3 books, and he is probably his most important role is he's a father and he's a husband, father to 2 kids, Joshua and Matthew. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Hey, yes, indeed. I'm doing great.
Nice to have you on tonight.
Right on. Yeah, I was just saying, we need to do more sort of grassroots media, where everybody's tired of this mainstream media. This is the way to go, man. We can do it. Get the technology.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, well, anyway, I was just kind of telling him now, 1997, you won the X Games World Championship. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really actually called the World Championship. It was the X Games, as you informed me.
That's right.
And
that's right. Yeah. There was no such things in my event back in those days. The United States Parachute Association, the FAI, free flying was just too new. And it was the X Games that saw us. They saw the sky surfing, of course, which I did some, but I was a free flyer. That was my game, which is vertical skydiving for those that aren't familiar with it. So like when you watch skydiving on TV, usually you see somebody falling on their belly, which is slow, at least comparatively speaking. And you're talking about 120 miles an hour. But what I do is vertical. So in other words, head down and sit. So vertical axis. So you're falling at like 180 miles an hour, which doesn't just shorten your free fall time. It also gives you a lot of power to maneuver fast, really aggressively, and do all kinds of really cool stuff. So it was a team event. So 2 flyers doing all sorts of choreographed tricks with a camera guy that's on you, like white on rice, and he chases you all around and makes you look good. That's the game. So yeah, really fun. Loved it. I did a lot of competitions in that.
Nice.
The story can be told in a lot of different ways.
Right.
People want to ask about, the development of free flying. They want to ask about the development of the Canopy stuff that I do. I build parachutes, still do, building lots of them. I do a lot of life coaching stuff too. It's another aspect of my career.
Yeah. So you've got 3 websites, and what do I got here? I got, you've got adventurewisdom.com, you got bigairsports.com, and you got transcendingfear.com. You got 3 websites. So Transcending Fear, personally for me, is my favorite because it's something that really works on the psyche, works on the mental aspect of everything. And I think being an athlete myself and being a skydiver and surfing and paddleboarding and doing everything the active lifestyle that I have, I think a lot of people I think people know that there's a mental aspect to it, but I don't think some people actually know how deep that actually goes. And I think you, especially as a skydiver, and you've had a pretty significant life experience that changed you too, which brought you to that. And I'll let you tell that in a little bit. But that for me was, the psychology of it is the most important thing. And so that to me is where, you connected with me and you didn't even know it back in 2006. That was the first time I'd heard you on that podcast. And I was like, wow, this guy's like, he knows his stuff. And it really brought things into perspective for me. So I said, I've got to skydive. I got to get up there. And as I've told my friends this before, they're like, what is it that possesses you to want to jump out of a plane? And I said, it's not a crazy gene. It's just, I'm an athlete. I want to push my bodies to the extremes. And every time I get up there, I take at least 3 to 5 seconds out of my skydive and I look up because I just want to see the expanse. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. My all-time favorite hero of all time was Neil Armstrong. I mean, he was before my time, but he was still, the guy's a pimp. He's like, who doesn't want to be Neil Armstrong. I mean, he's it. It's the pinnacle of the pinnacle of aviation for me. So, tell me about transcending fear.
Yeah, well, that's a long story.
It is.
But I mean, I guess it kind of starts. It really starts. I was a little kid who was scared of heights, and I grew up to become a professional skydiver despite it. So the fact that you can take someone's basic nature, you could call it that, and why we have fears, specific fears. And it's anybody's guess, right? Some people say, well, maybe it's an early childhood trauma that you don't remember. Maybe it was a past life trauma, some people say. Depends how far out you want to go down that rabbit hole. But either way, we have our set point. And I find that my real work in life, in terms of the expansion of my soul, expansion of who I am, comes through finding those areas that I'm actually scared about. I'm not talking about the things that are scary to other people, that you get to, show how cool you are and that you're not scared doing that thing that scares everybody else. I'm talking to the thing that actually scares you. To me, that's the work, man. That's the hot kitchen that expands the soul. And so if we can, tell that story from that perspective, it starts when I was that little kid, being on the top of the Empire State Building, looking over the edge, and my dad comes up behind me and he goosed me. I still remember it. I couldn't have been more than about 6.
Wow.
And, and so for me, it's, creeping back to the edge of that balcony over and over and over. But when it came back with a vengeance, more than anything is when I fell out of the sky. I was flying an experimental paraglider. I was up in Vermont, and it was too windy. It was too windy to fly. I should have stayed on the ground. I should have gotten a beer. Instead, I took off. And I didn't just take off like you typically do with a paraglider, sort of float around. I took off and went straight up. It was that windy.
Oh, wow.
And and I had to fight for my life. That whole flight, I was just trying to keep my glider inflated and keep myself from getting sucked up and, over the back of the mountain where you get drilled behind the mountain. You're in the leeward side,
right,
with a lot of down air, a lot of turbulence. And so I fought my way through it, and I got myself closer to landing. I was a little under 100 feet, and then I just lost almost all my glider. It was just gone. And she spiraled into the ground, and I got very, very broken. Somewhere around here in my office, I've got some of the metal that was inside of me, big chunks of metal that they rebuilt me with. And there was 9 big screws and all these things. It was really a major surgery to put me back together. And the doc was like, Brian, I don't know what to tell you, man. This is pretty bad. You really screwed yourself up. And I said, so, well, all I got to ask is when do I get back up in the air? How long till I skydive again? He was like, sorry, man. I hate telling people bad news, but no, you're never going to be able to skydive again. And, it was one of these, the air goes out of the blue. And I was a professional skydiver, I started my own skydiving school. I was 26 years old or something like that. Started my own school in Vermont, and it was my identity. You know what I mean? Right. It was the source of my happiness in that regard. And it didn't take me very long. I just had this mental turnaround within minutes, not hours or years.
Right.
Where I just sort of, something came into me. It was a knowledge that he's wrong. And I looked him in the eye. I was like, Doc, I hear what you're saying, but you don't know me. You know what I mean?
You don't know shit.
You don't know me. You don't know me. And I get it. They're trying not to get your hopes up. When you get hurt like that, and they see people's normal healing curve and where it tops out. And, if you're in a wheelchair, you're probably never going to be, a world-class athlete. I mean, that whole X Games thing, that started after my accident. Test piloting new canopies and developing. I've built thousands of parachutes that some pretty crazy ideas that I tested, and I ended up, doing all that stuff after. after I sold my skydiving school and moved on to a totally different trip, helping develop free flying, this vertical skydiving thing we're talking about.
Right.
That didn't exist. That did not exist before. There was people dabbling in it, but it wasn't a sport. It was just something that people did because they weren't, cool enough to hang out with the belly flyer kids and build the big formations or whatever. And we created something new. And it was beautiful. And all of this came from me being, sort of stuck on the ground, facing the fact that I might never fly again, facing the fear that I might be in pain the rest of my life, that I might have a limp. And then, sort of looking straight ahead, like a bull just sort of lowers its head. I remember I was in Africa. I was teaching some Canopy parachute courses down there. And we were driving along, and there was this herd of rhino. And this one big rhino, he's like the daddy, protecting all the other rhinos. And we're driving down the road behind them, and he would turn around, he'd stop, he'd look right at us, and he'd lower his head with that big horn. He lowered his head, getting ready to charge, basically saying, "Back off, buddy," And I had that in me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there was just this like determination that helped me push through not just this moment, but lots of other moments. It's one of the things I tried to share in all the books and all the videos and things that I share my experiences of turnaround, of mental kind of flipping on your own green light.
Yeah. Tell me, what are your books? You got, I know one is what is it? The Parachute, and it's a pilot. And that's basically the guide for the Ram Air Aviator, which most of us these days use the Ram Air. Maybe talk about that one just a little bit.
Sure. Well, that was it was a book that had to be written. Nobody wrote a book on parachuting aerodynamics. Nobody felt like they knew enough about it, I think. And I just sat down, and what I didn't know, I figured out. I learned. I studied. And of course, I'd been designing and building parachutes at that point for a long time. And so people would kind of, listen to what I had to say. So I put together what became this, this big, thick book of the current conditional truth about Ram Air parachutes and how to fly them. And the other aspect, of course, is not just, what is a parachute and how does it work? It's also, what is a parachutist and how do we work? Because a lot of the accidents that we see, it's not just the canopy going wrong. In most cases, it isn't. In most cases, when people get hurt, it's somebody screwing up. It's a head thing where they end up kind of, getting themselves either too brave or too scared, right? The swing of the pendulum. Yeah. Sanity is in the middle.
You've talked about this so many times.
Yeah. And it's finding that center point where you're not being so courageous that you're blind to the risks, and at the same time not so scared that you can't function. Right. That you're not your highest self. And so that's the second half of the book and it's pilot. That's what it's called, the Parachutist Pilot. Yeah. And that one's big. I guess everybody reads that one.
Well, I'll say this, Brian. One thing, one of the biggest lessons you taught me, and all credit to my coach Trevor Sitter down at Skydive the Land. He is absolutely one of the greatest. I have to say, if someone was spoiled in being able to learn how to skydive, it's been me, because I've had some of the best skydiving instructors. If Trevor wasn't there, I had, a guy named Fraser, I had Bob, I had, Bill Booth was there, you could always tap into him if he's walking around. So, everybody there, Pine, and the whole crew down there, they're amazing. The whole group is just an amazing group of people. And then of course I have you, my online Bodhisattva. So, but I remember one of the biggest lessons I ever took, and I had this on my very last skydive to get my A license, which, by the way, I got that, and I am now officially the member. So I got my license and everything else. So officially, yes, A license skydiver. So everybody come, let's go jump.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, for sure. But I remember my last jump, and I'm getting to the plane. I was pretty nervous because it was my last one before I got my license. And I was like, all right, I got to make sure I do this right, do that right. And I remember I heard everything, and there was dirt diving everything in my head. And the next thing I said was, what did Brian say? Go to the door like a sloth. Go to the door like a sloth. And I had to put myself in each individual moment. And it was really, and it goes right back to what you're saying about second half of that book. It's about that pilot. And, you were like, I think the one podcast I had listened to, and it said, you're like, it's each individual moment. So your first moment is at the door. Then the second moment is free fall. Then the third moment is pull-in. And the next one is landing. And they all have their individual fear elements, and you just have to master within that. So, that was pretty awesome. So now how did Transcending Fear come about in the books? Like, how did that evolve?
Well, that was the first one. Well, actually, that's not true. Vertical Journey was the first book that I wrote. So that one was basically teaching people about free flying back in the day when nobody knew anything about it. We didn't even know that much about it. We were competing. So I had my buddy Chucky. He was like, "You got to do it. You're the one, man. You're the one. You got to write the book." I'm like, "All right." And he took the pictures. Back in those days, he had a great big camera called Hasselblad? No, Bronica. Medium format. The slides were like the size of a phone. Wow. And he shot, we did early morning photos because that's when the light's good. So, hopefully the pilot didn't get too drunk and he'd get us up, at the crack of dawn, literally. And then you take off, and, if you take off and climb fast enough, the sun will kind of set on you again. And then you can free fall into the daytime. Absolutely amazing. And the quality of those photos, because of when we shot them, what time of day, it really makes a difference. So that was the first one, was Vertical Journey. And then after came Transcending Fear. And that one was research, man. There was lots of stories that I wanted to tell, but I also wanted to tell the story of what fear is. In order to really know that, I had to tap into, I went to grad school for psych, I tapped into that information, and I spent a couple of years going to the library on my own after grad school, reading everything that I could. And it wasn't all current stuff. Sometimes it was as old as William James, the father of modern psychology, talking about the theory of emotion and how our emotions are not only an intellectual appraisal of, for instance, a danger, and then it causes your brain to do certain things that give you certain physical capabilities or ineptitudes, depending on the levels. And he was saying basically that there's a feedback, that how you feel changes what you believe. In other words, your state of emotion and what you allow in terms of your breathing, your respiration rate, the way that you're breathing, not just the rate. Are you doing the fear breathing, or you're doing like the power breathing, breathing through the fear? The big difference in terms of what you then see of your world, and therefore your level of leverage, your power over it. How much of you shows up. You can put yourself into dangerous circumstances and thrive. Or you can put yourself into dangerous circumstances and just frickin' fall apart and freeze up when you need to be acting.
So right now, Brian, especially with what we've got going on, with this pandemic happening, and people have this fear. What do you say? What do you say to people right now? How do you tell them to deal with it on the most basic level, outside of what they're giving on the media? What do you say? What's Brian Germain's philosophy on this?
Yeah. Well, I think that the most important thing is to, first of all, recognize what you have in terms of power, what you have in terms of leverage, that you can create safety in a dangerous situation, right? And so to begin, you really, to appraise risk, you have to accept that there is risk.
Right.
You have to accept that there is an actual danger. And you go, wow, I'm young. I'm not going to, get sick and die. I might, cough for a couple of days and that'll be that. Yeah, but you could spread it to somebody's grandma, right? So there's real stuff going on, and I think the acceptance of the reality of it is key. Because a lot of people, I see these young base jumpers, man, they're like, it's just base jumping, and they'll base jump drunk. That's not facing the risk the way it needs to be in terms of the actual proportions of probabilities, right? And so that's the rational process comes next. when you accept that, yes, there really is some danger, okay, fine. Let's think about what's the likelihood that I'm going to interact with it. And, in this case, COVID-19, right? So you get this little bug, right? It's out there, I guess. Some say it's not, but I'm going to go with the assumption that, yeah, it's probably real.
Okay.
And then you go, all right, well, what's the likelihood that it's going to get onto me? And if it's on me, how am I going to spread it? My hair, my clothes or whatever. Well, what can I do to reduce those risks? Well, I can wear a mask, right? Just like, if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, I can rope up and tie in. I feel better when I rope up and tie in when on the edge of a cliff.
Right.
And so for me, that's part of it, is to go, wait a minute, I got tools. You know what I mean? I've got options here. I can wear a mask. I can wash my hands. I can maybe wear gloves if I'm, in a place that's really, I'm in a hospital or something. I should definitely wear gloves. I should take my clothes off when I get home, maybe leave my shoes outside, that kind of thing. But then you go, all right, I've done that. How do I deal with the leftover adrenaline? You know what I mean? And it might not be a high arousal level, but how do I deal with the leftover question of, yeah, but it might still be there. I might still, there's that probability that I can't control, that aspect of it. And for me, this is, coming back to number one, acceptance that, that's about as, calm and cool as I'm going to get. That's about as much as I'm going to be able to reduce the risk now.
Right.
And I have to just be okay with that, because I'm in a state of worry all the time. I suck. You know what I mean? My life sucks. How, my ability to share a cool vibe, to actually exude what I'm wanting to see in the world in terms of change. I don't got it. And so I think we have to recognize the value of our radiance. You know what I mean by that?
Right.
So you're sitting in an airplane getting ready to jump, right? And there's 21 other dudes, and hopefully some women too. And you look around and you go, all right, well, they are having their own trip. I'm having my own trip. So if I get nervous or I get, really freaked out, or I get totally relaxed and totally go into my zone, or I feel awesome, I feel powerful, what's the difference? Bullshit, man. They feel you. They feel you. They notice the way you're moving in the plane. You're sending out an aspect of their reality, right, from you. Right. And so the consequences are the nervous dude that's sitting maybe behind you, you didn't even notice him, but you didn't calm yourself down like fully, and you're still kind of moving fast and quick. You make him more nervous, and he screws up and he dies or breaks himself. So that's on you, right? And so I feel like as we walk in the world, we got to walk with our heads high. We got to walk fearlessly. We got to, you got to wear a mask. You wear a mask, whatever. It's fine. It's just safety equipment. It's okay. It's temporary.
Right, exactly. Well, and on that point of the face mask too, Brian, a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people realize this, everybody's got these masks. They had a thing that came out the other day that even talked about this. I was a medic for 10 years and down in Florida. And one thing is that N95 is the only one showing that it actually works. It's the only one that's actually working. Everything else is just kind of like, it's a security blanket essentially. And it's like, hey, if that makes you feel better, you're minimizing some dust particulates and stuff, but hey, something is better than nothing. And so why not do it?
Well, you may have it, you might be spreading it and not know it because you're asymptomatic. Right. And you sneeze on grandma, and then she drops dead, that sucks. So I think that's part of it too, is, I think that's most of it, is that, you're covering your mouth so that you don't sneeze on somebody when you think, wow, I'm not sick. Yeah, you are. You just won't know for 2 days or 3 days or whatever.
Yeah, whatever
right? But here's the thing, right? So you can go into zombie apocalypse mode, lock and load and stay at home and hoard your canned goods and your piles of toilet paper and be an asshole about this and fear-based.
Yep.
Or you can do the same kinds of things where you're preparing for your family, not with guns and stupid stuff, but you're doing it in a way that's rational in proportion to the probability that, if people aren't going to work, the economy's going to tank. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Not forever, but for now, you're going into the Great Depression. Deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Just like when you jump off a cliff. By the way, you need a parachute. You can wear that parachute in fear, or you can just go into acceptance and wear this like a knight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're putting on your suit of armor and you're saying, I'm not scared. I'm prepared. Right. I'm planting my garden, and I'm not doing it out of fear. I'm doing it because I like freaking broccoli and I like it fresh. And if the store's empty, dude, I got chickens. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm addressing the concerns in a rational way, but not from a place of fear.
Right. Somebody asked me today, actually this morning, a friend of mine called me and he says, so what do you think? Are they going to play baseball? And what's your opinion? And I said, here's my opinion and take it for what it's worth. I believe that the season should be canceled. We had a strike in baseball in 1998. Baseball revived and it came back. It's the same thing that's going to happen here. We're going to revive. I feel that the reason we should cancel the season is because it's going to give the economy, it's going to give people a chance to get back to work. For them to jump right back in and go watch a game of baseball, granted, okay, the team makes money because people are spending it at the stadium, but people really don't have it because they haven't been making paychecks. So for me, my thought is cancel the season completely and allow this economy to try to catch up. And I'm meaning by the good, hardworking blue collar workers and everybody else in this country. Let's get back to work first. Let's prioritize it, fix the economy best we can as a whole, and and then let's play some ball. So I mean, that's my 2 cents on it. But yeah. So
right on. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just about taking things rationally, and that concept of rationality needs to be brought back into the national conversation, into the human psyche individually. What are we rationing, right? What are the two proportions here, right? There is the actual risk and your power over that risk, which comes from skill, knowledge, expertise, and cooperation, right? That's your leverage. That's the lift. Right. And what you're carrying is the other thing, right? It's like an airplane has its lift, thrust, drag, and weight, right? What you're carrying is the risk, and you carry it with your knowledge, your expertise, your skill, and your cooperation with other people, where you get more information, you get help in all kinds of different ways. And then you don't feel alone. You don't feel helpless in this overwhelming time. Right?
So what do you think collectively? Like right now, everybody is doing the social distancing and all this, but what else do you think we could do collectively that people could put together?
Can we please stop calling? I hate to cut you up. We got to stop calling it social distancing. Dude, I am so much more social now. I mean, I'm interacting, with ones and zeros right through the internet, but I talk to people constantly. I do the life coaching stuff, but also I'm doing interviews like this every day. Right. Every day, more than before. So it's not social distancing; it's physical distancing. That's all it is.
Yeah, physical distancing.
So sorry, I should shut up, but that's a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, no, it's not social distancing.
No, it's a valid point. It should be physical distancing because social, man. I think we're getting closer than ever. I think we talked about this earlier. It's like I can't believe that we've got family. I'm hearing families playing cards and making puzzles. Like I heard somebody tell me the puzzle industry is like going through the roof. So that's crazy. But know what I'm saying is like, what else do you think we could do collectively? I mean, we're building each other up outside. We're posting everything we can social media wise. Everybody's trying to connect this way. What else? I mean, it just seems like.
Well, I think part of it. We're going through a really deep philosophical shift, aren't we? Right?
Oh, for sure.
And everybody's sort of doing their own reprioritization, in their own way, in terms of what's your level of give-a-shit for the things in your life. Does that Prada purse mean anything to you now? Probably not. But that can of chicken noodle soup that you saved up, so we're changing our priorities, and I think that to be supportive of people who are trying to make a living from home, supportive of people who are creating local businesses. The guy that's he got some extra chickens and he's selling eggs by the side of the road. Freaking buy some of his eggs, man.
Yeah.
Right. Support him from 6 feet away or whatever. But we can manage a local economy. But as far as the global economy right now, it's going to be weird. Right. It's going to be complicated. It's going to slow down relative to the unnaturally expedited, unnaturally ballooned system that we had before. It was all fake. It was all, just puffed up. It was a balloon. It was a bubble.
Right.
So now we just got to face that and go, all right, what can I do locally? And how do I think non-locally in terms of quantum information, quantum relationships? Love ain't local. It's everywhere, right? And so we give the love by sending our Bitcoins to people through the internet for services that they can give me right here in my own home. My kids are doing drum lessons and piano lessons at home through Zoom or whatever. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm even getting more tech savvy with this stuff. I mean, it's pretty cool. Nate, tell me about some of these companies that you've talked with. You do motivational keynote speaking. You travel the world. Not lately. Well, not lately, but before. Yeah. I mean, like, tell me tell me who you talk with. Like, give me some companies.
Well,
here.
I mean, all kinds of, there's like tech groups, right? Where I come in and like, I don't know anything about your actual tech. I don't know what you guys are making with your little widgets or whatever it is, but I do know that you're human beings that feast on thriving through the process of digging into your own inspiration, authentic inspiration, and that process is scary because you put yourself out there, you put yourself into something that you have a high level of give a shit about, and that's going to cause you to be worried that people are going to judge you. That's human nature. And I know that in my own life, when I decided to just do it anyway, to not worry about other people judging me, to move forward with the things that felt good in my body, where just my soul really there was no choice. It was either do it or wither. You know what I mean? I got to move forward with what I'm passionate about, despite my fear, and notice that the fear is going to keep coming back. Whether it's the worry that you're going to get hurt again in skydiving, or it's worry that you're going to lose your job, or other people are going to think you're that crazy guy with that crazy idea. If you don't move forward, you're going to be missing a piece of yourself. The piece of yourself that is the inspired you, the larger form of you. It's always there, but sometimes you turn the other way and you run towards safety, and you're missing the power of your higher self.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I find myself initially looking at my audience. I'll have tons of CEOs. It was Ansa McAl. I was in they flew me down to Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm basically talking to these CEOs of this conglomerate all over the Caribbean, as you will. And I don't know anything about these people, so initially I always find myself a little bit nervous. Like, dude, I'm just a simple skydiving shrink. What do I have to offer? And then I think a little bit more about, sort of my journey and how it is metaphorical, getting back in the sky and pushing forward with new ideas and inventing. I've got patents and, writing books that, people needed to write that they didn't write because maybe they didn't, feel worthy or something, right? And so tapping into worthiness in a sense of personal power and becoming comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. And being cool with the fact that, I'm a little nervous. I'm jumping out of a plane, or I'm going into some new, environment where I don't know if I got what it takes, but I know I'm going to keep trying, and recognizing that this is about as calm as you're going to get. Might as well lean into the wave, you know what I mean? And paddle harder. The bigger the wave, the harder you got to paddle with it, because if you fight it, it's going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll say this. Listen, I've been a Krav Maga instructor for over 10 years now, and I'll tell you, we have a phrase in the Krav Maga, which is the system that I teach. When I want the students to move forward, I say kadima, and I give I'll give that order, command, kadima, move forward. I had a student that I was working with, and she had been the victim of domestic violence, and she had continually gotten beaten and everything. And there was at one point where I said, "You're gonna have to kadima. You're gonna have to move forward with this." And it was one of those things where it pops up, and that fear hits, and you either cower and run, or you're going to take the action and you're going to do it. And of course she does it, and it was successful. She was able to get away, escape, and find herself safety. But it's transcending the fear and moving through it through just punching into it sometimes.
Yeah. Not being afraid of the fear itself, right? In willingness to look at it and sort of breathe that emotion, and accept that, that's how I feel. That there is, a genuine emotional experience that's going on, and at the same time, sort of above that, there's something called intention, right? Which is the power of our will, the power of our desire. But we kind of give that away in order to get rid of the fear, I think. We give up too much in order to get safety, to get comfort.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things to recognize, is that if we sit down and we maybe scribble in a notebook, we chatter away or we thumb it away, and we'd write down our real ideals. What do you stand for? Who are you? And sort of remember who you really wish to be. The expanded version of you, the one that you didn't have the balls to really unveil yet, right? Everybody has a larger version of them that they sort of dream of. Maybe they have, sort of fantasies of, what if I was the boss, or what if I started my own company? Well, keep building that image in your mind. Keep telling that story. Keep expanding it. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself wondering why you're so damn depressed, why your body is withering, and eventually will die.
Yeah.
Because you lost the full force of your inner being. Because you're just, being a shadow of who you intended to be.
Right.
So fear, who cares, man? I think there has to be that. And at the same time, when you transcend fear, when you decide that you're going to basically observe it, give it as an indication that there is maybe some danger or at least some worry.
Yeah.
And sort of accept it, and then get back to this process of what's the actual risk and what's the actual ability.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, like, they said, "Oh, well, you don't seem like you're afraid of skydiving anymore, or you don't feel like you're nervous." I'm like, no, I'm nervous every time, but it's how you walk into it, and it's how you look at it. You accept the mortality of it, and it isn't. You're thinking about it the whole time, but every move you make is a process in which prevents that a little bit more. So
yeah, exactly. And that sense of power over the risk, I think, is really important to focus on. What can I do right now? Because you're sitting in the airplane and getting ready to jump. You're a little bit worried. Well, check your handles, man. Look around. Maybe observe where the airplane is climbing relative to the drop zone. If you had an engine out, and you jumped out, would you be over the ocean? So you have some awareness of the cloud altitudes as the airplane is climbing, expanding out into the environment instead of retreating into your fear self. I think that's the trick.
Right? Yeah, for sure. So that's awesome, man. So for those of you who are watching or haven't watched and are going to watch this later, I'm talking to Brian Germain. Brian Germain, he's the former 1997 world champion for the X Games. So Brian, I have a friend of mine. He asked me today, he says, "Hey, what does he give? What advice do you give?" And obviously our seasoned skydivers, this doesn't obviously pertain to you, but for someone who is even contemplating just doing a tandem, their first jump, what's your advice to them? How do they look at the fear? How do they manage it? And how do they get, if they're going to get to that point, what's going to help them? What's your advice?
Yeah. Well, you get to start off with a really solid list of reasons why you want to do it. Because if you can do anything that can get you hurt or killed, you better have a damn good reason, because otherwise you're going to be really steeped in regret afterwards with your broken ankle.
Yeah.
And so, I say the same thing when people want to learn how to skate, or snowboard. You got to have a reason, and hopefully more than one, where it's really egosyntonic, that's in sync with who you really are, that your life has led to this. And then you're going to be able to push through those moments. But one of the other ones is to sort of create an agreement within yourself that you're not going to shame yourself for being a little bit nervous. Maybe being a little bit sick. People, they borrow
barf sometimes. My next door neighbor, I took him up for a tandem. He puked all over the place. It happens, right?
Right.
So you have to originally have this intention. No matter what happens, shame is not going to play into this, this equation. I'm just going to accept however it is and move forward. And if my desire is to do more than one jump to get good at this, because the skydiving thing, it gets better as you get more skillful.
Yes.
It gets way more interesting, right? At the beginning, you're just dipping your toe in the water. You're not swimming yet. So I think it's important to know that the first jump is what it is. You might be more scared or less scared than you think. It might be more euphoric or more sort of paralyzing than you think. Whatever, you got to sort of get through the experience the best that you can, and then continue jumping. It's the only way to get the hang of this stuff. But as far as the first jump goes, as far as getting yourself prepped, I think it's important to address the simplest things. If you're going to do a tandem jump, your body position is very significant.
Right.
And your body tension is very, so if somebody's really stiff, they don't fly well. The whole tandem is, even you're attached to an instructor, you're making him move all around, right?
Right.
So learning how to relax and surrender and let the air spill over you is important. And if you've never been on a bike at high speed, a lot of people have never been on a motorcycle, well, then have somebody else drive the car on the highway, as fast as you legally are allowed. And you stick your head outside, man. You get your head in the wind and try to breathe and get used to breathing in the wind. Because so many people have a bad experience of free fall because they don't know how to breathe. You keep your mouth closed, you breathe through your nose. You open up your mouth too much, you're, why can't I breathe? That's why you didn't have a good skydive, because you were struggling to breathe. You felt like you were drowning in the air. So that's a good practice thing. Stick your hand outside in the wind when you're driving your car and feel the power of the control, how you can adjust the angle, the relationship of the flight vehicle, in this case it's your hand, to the relative wind, the airflow passing it. You change that angle and you create a force. And that force is called control, right? That's how airplanes work. It's the human body flies just as well as an airplane. Okay, we're not so good at the horizontal thing, but down, man, we can really fly. We can fly beautifully, skillfully, with tremendous precision. And if you can get to the wind tunnel, they're all over the place now. I think that's a really good first step.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's how I started. That's how I started. I went down to iFly. I was at it was called Sky Venture at the time down in Orlando, the spaceship looking thing. And I went in there and there was a guy, manager, Joe Winters. If Joe's watching, Joe, I miss you, man. I hope we catch up sometime. I want to skydive with you now. But he was great. And, he was like an instructor and he said, man, you really could be a decent skydiver. You got good body position. And then, time moves on. And then all of a sudden, I meet my coach, Trevor, and he says, we got to get you in the wind tunnel. 15 minutes is what I need. And I gave him the 15 minutes, and it did. It made a world of difference. I mean, just tiny little movements just here and there. But it does. The whole objective of that wind tunnel is to give you a little bit more confidence. And I think any type of arsenal you can give yourself, from the layman's perspective, moving into being an A-licensed skydiver, is bring it in, bring the experience in,
Totally.
So
everything you can do, and I find also that other adrenaline provoking sports are really helpful. That it's not just doing the thing that you're training to do, that there's cross training in other things. Yoga, man. If you do enough yoga, you can be one hell of a skydiver.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other things that you have to address in terms of parachute flight, because that's not exactly yoga. But free fall, man, that really, really helps.
Right.
And the ability to focus your mind. When we talk about focusing on an intention, you clearly say, this is what I want to do on this skydive. Jump out in this orientation. Do this in free fall, and then I'm going to break off and open my parachute at this height. You have this clear mental map.
Yeah. Hey, I remember one of my jumps I had going in A license. I had a really hard pull, and I went back and I looked at it and I was like, oh, I was really tense. I had tensed up right when it was time to pull, and I was like, oh, wow. So that's why my shoulders are all like tight on me today. But it was, and so.
Yeah, putting it all together. And I think that there's an envisioning part of the process that is part of the skydive. People don't get that. If you're not into skydiving or other things like that, martial arts as well is good, but many other activities where your envisioning process is not considered to be extraneous. It's not something that you're doing for fun, thinking about the thing that you want to do, but it's not real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Your visualization is real. It's part of the skydive, and it's paving the way through a clarified visualization of where you want to go. I mean, a lot of things you do in skydiving you've never done before, and in fact, maybe nobody's ever done before.
Right.
So the only way that's going to flow well the first time around is to really meditate, clear your mind, get in the zone, and then see it. Let yourself see it and drive the experience with your will. Then you go up and do it, and you're like, wow, how did you do that? I'd already done it.
Yeah. I tell you, I was watching another video today, and there was a lady talking. Her name's Sue Cooper. She runs a place down in Key West. She runs a paddleboarding and kayaking thing down there. And one thing she talked about today, she has like some key things, her 8 before 8, she called it. And she was saying things like, at night before you go to bed, visualization. And I was like, exactly. It's the same thing. You basically just going to dirt dive all the positivity into your head right before you go to bed at night. Sit there and think about all your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. Don't sit there and think about all the stress you got going on. Try to focus on what your long-term goal is and put that in your mind. That's what's going to help you sleep better. But, it's the same thing when you get up in the morning. You have people who get up and they say, oh, thank you. The sun's rise and hey, it's a new day. Be thankful. You woke up.
Yeah, I'm not dead. I think that part of the before bed clarification, you could call it, you don't have to call it meditation or whatever. Maybe you do a little stretching and just sort of let the day roll off of you and go, that's what it was, but that day's already the past. How do I envision sort of a clear image of who I want to be, what I want to be living, what I want to be doing, and how do I want to be feeling as I'm doing it? And then your dreams are different.
Yeah.
I mean, you think those dreams aren't real?
Yeah.
When you're in beta, you know what I mean? You think that when you're having those out of body experiences that feel so good, you can taste it, you can smell it, it's real for you.
Yeah.
It is real. It is real. It's all the Matrix anyway. So you might as well have an intentional sleeping, an intentional wake up, clear your mind, and intend your day.
Yeah.
I think it changes you.
Yeah, for sure.
Having days start that way, where I get up and I sit and sit on the foot of the bed, my feet on the ground, and I'm deeply thankful, expressing my thankfulness to the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no small thing that I'm alive.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, they kind of toe in the line of safety, and it's like it's not really a surprise to them that they're still alive.
Yeah.
I feel like they're owed it. It's a freaking miracle, dude, that I'm alive. I mean, 16,000 jumps, most of them test jumps.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And we have literally, we've got 7 minutes left. Is there anybody watching that's got any questions you want to shoot at Brian or myself? Happy to answer some questions for you if you're interested in the skydive or, Brian's got the great websites. Obviously right now he's not traveling too much due to the pandemic, but if you get a question, shoot it our way. And if we run out of time here, which we're going to do in about 7 minutes, please direct message me, or you can reach out to Brian. And he's got transcendingfear.com, and he's happy to, he can do one-on-one sessions with you over Zoom, as he was talking about. But if you guys got anything, shoot them out.
Wisdom, there's lots of different things. Yeah. I mean, people think that automatically a professional skydiver is going to be wanting everybody to be a skydiver. And the truth is, I don't care if you jump out of planes or not, but I want you to metaphorically jump out of planes.
Yeah.
I want you to, sort of put yourself out there in your way as an individual and shine your light into this world, man. you put your spin on your life instead of having the world tell you how to be.
Yeah.
You know, how to dress, how to act, you know, freaking, you know, let your freak flag fly.
Yeah. I want to see that positivity. Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like when I teach somebody how to paddleboard, they get up on the board for the first time. Or when they tell me they did a tandem skydive, some people say, oh, well, I don't have as many jumps as you. It doesn't matter. You did it. Like, that's the stoke. Like, that's what makes me happy, to see that someone took that opportunity in their life. You know, someone tells me, oh, man, I caught my first wave. Well, some people are like, oh, well, that was a ripple. It doesn't matter. It's a wave. You got up. You challenged it. It was something that you did.
It's all relative. Exactly. Yeah. But I think that people shooting for acceptable life, you know, just passable, I'm just getting through my day and trying not to, you know, get too much on me. I don't think it's enough. I don't think the human spirit's designed for that. I think we're designed to live an inspired life, and anything else is not going to be enough.
Absolutely.
Because we're going to look back at some point. There's going to be a death moment for every one of us where we look back on our life and we either feel proud or we feel regret that we are a wimp. And I don't mean wimp in terms of showing how brave you are in terms of physical risks.
Yeah.
I'm talking about you having the balls to be you, you know, in the most beautiful possible way.
Yeah.
It's the only option. It's the only option. It's the reason you're here.
Somebody asked me that one time, and I said, you know, it's vivid, clear. You know when that moment has happened in your life, whether, like you said, it's a death moment or something. You know, I've had two very vividly clear moments in my life where I knew I had to make a decision to go right or go left. And I had a dear friend I grew up with, and at one point he'd asked me to try a drug, and I was like, that's not me. I'm an athlete. I can't go down this. I can't go down your road. This isn't my trip, man. And, you know, to this day, I mean, I'm not friends with him, but I made the best decision. And did it hurt? I lost a friend, but I hope the best for him. But at the same time, it wasn't the right choice. It was the say no to drugs thing, but it was the right choice to make. And I see where it led me. So,
right. Yeah. I think that to be egocentric, in other words, to live a life that is really in resonance and harmony with your ideals, your personal ideals. It has nothing to do with anybody else's ideals.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with legality either, by the way. There's a lot of things where the laws will change. And I'm actually not talking about weed or something. I'm talking about all kinds of laws and reprioritizations that are happening in our society right now.
Right.
That we're going to shift and change. And to really examine what we believe in is why I think that's the meaning we're going to extract out of this lockdown. Just to, you know, sort of disengage from your life and rethink what's meaningful to you and not project that onto anybody else, because they're on a different trip. Let them be, you know, let them be on their trip, because that's the freedom that you want them to give you.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you know, sort of flow to your own wave and dance to your own drummer, who are you being?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something real quick. Something really got close to my heart. I saw that video you just posted with you and your sons at Easter doing the parachute thing. I loved it. I was like, man, that reminded me. I was a kid. My dad was talking to the neighbor, and the neighbor nudged my dad and says, look at your son. I was up on the roof with a towel, and I had just watched Superman, and I literally thought I was going to try and fly. By the time he got over into the yard, I'd already jumped, and I was in there. Luckily, our grass was thick. I had jumped off the roof of the house. And I guess maybe that was the moment I knew I was going to be a skydiver. So I don't know, but that was my little. I just thought about you when I saw your son. So listen, Brian, we're about to close it up. We're going to run out of time here, but I just want to thank you so much for your time. This has been an awesome hour, guys, and for all of you watching, I really appreciate you coming in and checking this out. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to Brian on his website, Transcending Fear. This is a great opportunity. Everybody's looking within.
Yeah, my newer website is adventurewisdom.com. Check that one out. They both have a lot of value.
Awesome.
A lot of good stuff.
All right. Well, guys, everybody, blue skies, blue waters, keep them clean. Thanks a lot, Brian. Shaka.
Right on.
Have a good one.
Yes.
See ya.